Week 18, the finale, the conclusion, whatever you want to call it.
We made it!
The Stackfest, Underworld Stackfest, brought to you by Player Profiler here on RotoGrinders.com. We were talking a little bit before the show, Matt. I was blessed to be on one of Matt's shows earlier this week, and we briefly touched on this. Week 18 is usually one of my favorite slates, actually, because I'm one of those big sickos, and I thought it would be a pretty good slate for us to go out on here on this show. Given
chaos mode.
Total chaos, lots of obscure names and random players that theoretically the people thinking like those that do on the show should be able to have
fast. Not so fast, Eric.
Everybody's playing to win. I was telling Dario before all these even the teams that should be resting guys. We were talking briefly about the Chargers before the show. It seems like they may not go the whole game, but they haven't technically said they're not going to rest. It feels like, Matt, to me, the weirdest kind of final week. I know we haven't had a lot of week 18s, but whether it was old week 17, it feels like one of the weirder ones where we of course have a couple spots where guys are resting, some decently fun backup running backs, but it feels closer to a normal slate than I was expecting for week 18. Yeah. Is that kind of how you're feeling too?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting there's teams that are playing for something in the playoffs, or teams that have been out of it for a long time and they've just been playing on pride and playing for the next contract for weeks, and some of them exceeding expectations. The Rams, the Panthers, the Falcons. Some of these lines you're thinking they're going to be bigger, but no, these teams have been playing spunky last few weeks.
Even the Texans, who just got their face beat in by the Jaguars, but for weeks before that, right, they take the Chiefs to overtime. They nearly beat the Cowboys. I hadn't even actually thought about that spin. The Panthers were a really good example of that, where these teams have been out of it. The Browns are kind of playing for next season, right? Well, Jadeveon Clowney is definitely playing for next season. He's gone out the door. But, Deshaun Watson, it's not like they're going to rest him. He needs to play. And these guys that are going to be here next year need to play with Deshaun Watson. So we really have this limited amount of, I wanted the full-blown, give me the backup quarterback stacks with, give me some running cool backup quarterbacks that we just don't have, against the Texans. We don't have a lot of that. So it does feel a little bit more like a normal Stackfest show.
What do we have, like a Tyrod Taylor? Is that all we got?
I think so. And the other thing is, the Colts have packed it in a long time ago. We have Sam Ehlinger as, I think, our top point per dollar projection. Again, he is facing the Texans. That's probably why. It's not a Sam Ehlinger thing. It's the fact that he's facing the Texans. Skylar Thompson. Right, Ritter's been in there already for a couple of weeks. Joe Flacco is our new Week 18 quarterback. Huntley's been playing. All these guys have been playing at quarterback. So we don't have a lot new.
We're very
familiar.
You
mean you guys aren't going to play Nathan Peterman?
Yeah, it's Peterman. Peterman and Flacco are the two Week 18 substitute quarterbacks. So they're torturing us.
That's a bummer. Yeah, Peterman's a bummer.
But Dario, what do you think about, I've got obviously your list of games here, and the majority of them are at a minimum one team really playing for something on one side, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any, from a macro view before we dive into the first game, is there anything you're kind of just that stuck out to you about this week in terms of, could be motivational, could be, one motivational team against a maybe non-motivational team? We got a couple of those. Just any kind of macro trend that you've had hanging over your head this week?
I think that's definitely the biggest one. Kind of hinted at it. Usually when I'm looking at the games for this show, it's there's games where they're exciting on both offenses of the ball. We see it as a pretty balanced game. Has a total that's at least 46 at the lowest, but usually we like to see 48, 50. But this week it's a lot of low 40s over-unders and really one-sided games that are, giving teams the highest implied point totals. We have the Bills on the list. We have the Eagles on the list. We have the Niners and the Bengals on the list. These are all teams that, I don't know how many run backs we're going to talk about today, because I think a lot of these games you're stacking just purely one side of it. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that point.
I didn't see on your list. I didn't see my Cowboys.
I think that they're
a lot of implied points there.
Motivation wise, I don't know what, I guess they're hoping the Eagles lose in order to have any shot at winning the division, but I think they're pretty locked in as the 5 seed. My guess is if at halftime the Eagles are up 2 touchdowns and you're Mike McCarthy, why aren't you pulling your starters too?
That one's definitely tricky. That one's probably trickier than we can talk about some of these. We're going to dive into these games, but we could probably talk about a couple of these. Like
Cooper
the
Rush
Chargers,
has been good though,
and that is true. I would
mean,
imagine
good,
Rush for the second half.
not good, but like
good
for
enough.
a backup quarterback, good. Like not
If
quite
he-
Jacoby Brissett, but like almost.
If he comes in and you have Dalton Schultz or something, and assuming Dalton, I think the concern is like, well, that now CeeDee's not going to play also, right? I think that would be the concern. Perfect week to get Jalen Tolbert some snaps, for Christ's sake. The kid's been inactive all year, but I think
He's on so many of my best ball teams.
Yeah, my God, what a disaster. Him and Alberto have been hanging out all year on the inactive list. The Chargers are another one that I think we should just briefly touch on, as opposed to a game stack, as a team who is a little bit similar to Dallas, except, technically, right, Dallas doesn't know. They think going into their game they have a chance to get the bye. Now they would need the Giants backups to beat the full strength Eagles, which is probably not gonna happen. I think should be factored into that probability. But the Chargers are like they're not getting a bye. They're not winning the division. They can move up a seed or something.
Yeah.
All the scenarios are kind of crazy, but generally speaking, they're pretty locked in. But they haven't said that they're like resting guys. Do you have any thoughts on the Chargers, Dario?
So I'm pretty sure that the way it works for the Chargers is if the Ravens lose, the Chargers will be locked in as the 5 seed. So at that point, they would have nothing to play for. And if the Ravens win, then the Chargers have to win in order to stay the 5 seed. And keep in mind, the 5 seed is a pretty big advantage over the 6 seed in the AFC, because the 6 seed is going to have to travel to play one of like Buffalo or Cincinnati likely, and the 5 seed is going to have to play at Jacksonville or Tennessee, which are not bad teams, but not nearly as scary. So I think that if the Ravens win in the morning, then the Chargers definitely are going to need to take care of business against the Broncos, but the Ravens are also 9.5 point underdogs.
That's the problem.
Yeah, Lamar's out again. For anybody
this is why the Cowboys and the Chargers are sort of similar teams. It'd be nice if one of these teams had a backup player, not the technical starter, who is also super productive no matter what, whether he's starting or whether he's in more of a breather back role. It's almost, who could that be?
Does it rhyme with Pony Tollard?
Oh, that's right. It's almost like that guy's an amazing option this week. And I can also see a good week for Josh Palmer in there in 3 receiver sets, but then also as maybe the number 1 receiver in the 4th quarter. So there's a couple of guys like that from these games I think could be interesting. Stacking, a little more dangerous.
Yeah, my concern with Pollard would be he's still coming back from an injury, and like, why rush him in there? They have Malik Davis, who they've been using to rotate in as a 3rd back. So I think
who's also better than Zeke. We found out a couple weeks ago.
So yeah, I think that I'd still be probably a little bit cautious with Pollard, especially since his DFS salary is still through the roof.
Yeah. Is there someone else on Dallas you think Schultz you'd use?
I like the Chargers stuff a little bit more because it's one of those things where as you're heading into your, let's say either you have afternoons, maybe you're playing the afternoon only slate, or you're playing, you have afternoon slots available in your lineups to play around with. You'll know like what to do with the Chargers, right? They may still even start Herbert and co, but once it's locked in, you'll be like a quarter, at worst a half. And then, like you said, Josh Palmer's already going to be out there with the ones a decent amount anyway. And then you can get him, as the lead wide receiver for a whole half or 3 quarters, or they could just bench all these guys for all we know. You'll know.
I don't think they can bench Palmer, because then they wouldn't have enough receivers.
No, I mean they're starters. I mean, like they could be like Justin Herbert could be
he's the answer.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. I was gonna say maybe Josh Kelley, but they'd probably Roundtree was getting some touches last week then too, and it's like I don't even know that we need to go there because we do have some other backs. But I just wanted to touch on some of these spots that are like awkward, I guess is the right word, right? They're like,
yeah, I mean, like on paper, you see the Cowboys favored by 7. You're like, all right, let's load them up. But I think that like the way things are probably going to play out is the Eagles are going to be up big on the Giants backups, and Mike McCarthy's going to be like, it's like, take a seat, Tony. We need you next week.
Damn it.
One before we move on to the actual games we want to talk about, I wanted to ask you guys about this game because I don't have a specific like super strong take, but what about the Bucks in terms of this similar situation? Now, they also have not said like, oh, we're full out resting everybody, but what they have done historically is Brady comes out with the ones, plays like maybe 2 series, and then goes and sits down. I think that's just kind of how Brady likes to play it, right? It's not a coaching thing. And so if they come out and do that, they are playing the Falcons, which is a pretty good matchup. The Falcons, maybe or maybe not have good run backs. London, maybe Algier, something like that. Are there any Bucks that you might be interested in? Again, or if you disagree, maybe the Bucks are going to play.
Is there anyone like Tony Pollard on the Bucks?
I mean, he's not as good. Didn't we just talk about these two as a comparison the other day? I think
on our show, the Motivation Show.
Yeah.
Rashad, I think this might have been where I was thinking about it because I was like, these guys are in similar situations in Week 18. But I think that the Buccaneers would be less likely to feel like we can't risk getting Rashad White injured. We don't want him to get a hip pointer.
Lenny won't play, but I don't think they feel that way about Rashad.
Exactly. I think they feel like Rashad can just go and play the whole second half.
I mean, he's a rookie, and Tony Pollard's in his like third year.
Totally
different.
He's
third.
Yeah. So Pollard's definitely earned his dues, but I think Rashad White, go get the reps, young guy.
Yeah, I think that's a good play this week.
I think that about covers it for these other games that were, I thought, at least like appealing, right? We wanted to just touch the Cowboys, the Chargers, and then the Bucks.
Because isn't Russell Gage essentially like a worse version of Josh Palmer? So why?
Yeah. Who cares? Scotty Miller, I guess, but like Scotty Miller catching passes from Kyle Trask doesn't sound very fun to me.
Rashad White is 5.4K on DraftKings.
I think that the running backs. Josh Palmer. I don't know that I want to touch those Chargers running backs. I think I like your point on Palmer, and it also could be more people on the Chargers if like they decide at the last minute, hey, we are actually going to rest some guys, right? But not a ton from those. So let's dive in to some of the games where we actually are pretty excited about multiple players from one side. First one being Bills and Patriots. Pretty clear here why the Bills are an appealing option. A, they're the Bills. B, they're one of the teams that's going all out to win. They're going to try to still get the 1 seed. And if anybody has motivation, if you want to, play that motivational card, there probably hasn't been a greater motivation in the history of the NFL than the Buffalo Bills this week. I think in terms of price, sometimes they are a difficult team to afford because Josh Allen is very frequently the highest priced quarterback, if not always the highest priced quarterback. And, Diggs is expensive. Gabe used to be expensive, etc. I don't really think the pricing is a concern. I think what's nice about our game stack conversation this week is it can be largely just who the hell's going to score the most points because we can jam them in, right? There's going to be cheap options that open up for us to afford these guys. So Dario, where are you headed first? Is it as simple as I really want the Allen Diggs, or how are you thinking about the Bills?
Yeah, I think that you kind of like, I do want to play this like a typical Bills stacking week with Allen throwing like 2 of Knox and Diggs and Gabe Davis, of course. And then I think that James Cook is really intriguing this week. He's still pretty cheap. I think he's like a little bit below
5K
Singletary still.
Yep.
So I think that, like, those are all interesting options to me. And like you said, I think that the Bills have everything to play for emotionally. But as far as the 1 seed goes, they will know by the end of the day, Saturday, whether they have a chance at the 1 seed, because the Chiefs play the Raiders on Saturday.
Oh, you're right.
The Chiefs take care of business, and the Bills will. I think the Bills and Bengals still can kind of like are jockeying for the 2 seed and potentially hosting a game between the two of them in the divisional round. Like, I think there's still. I think the Bills might have to win in order to stay the 2 seed and avoid dropping to the 3. However, so I mean, I think that there's plenty for them to play for.
Trying to double check that.
I'm pretty confident the Bills will be. At full strength, full capacity, full effort.
Even if the Chiefs clinch the number 1 seed with a win on Saturday, the Bills will still want the number 2 seed and can lose it in a loss with the Bengals win. So, and like you said, they obviously can win it even if the Bengals lose, but they play at the same time. So definitely no rest concerns for the Bills. I definitely want to hit some more on the Bills, but we're going to pass this to Matt for, if we're going to get into the obscure plays, what Patriots, if any, would you be interested in running your
Tyquan
Bills?
Thornton in there?
Oh, there we go. Now we're talking.
You want some Tyquan? Why not Tyquan Thornton? Isn't Tyquan Thornton wasn't he built in the lab for GPPs?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that's your guy, man. That's all I need to know. But I do have questions though about Diggs. What happened, man? Because I have Diggs in a lot of leagues, and before week 17, it was not what I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're still it's been since the last time they faced New England that Stephon Diggs has scored more than 10 fantasy points. That was in November. It's just saying.
It's also tough just to
saying.
piggyback. He had the monster game against the Titans at the beginning of the season. For an 8K plus wide receiver on both sites, 7,900 on DraftKings, 8,400 on FanDuel. Maybe on the FanDuel price is a little bit more fair, but I don't know, man. I need me a little more juice than Stephon Diggs has been providing this year. Like, there's good games, but like I can pay 5,800 and get a lot of these 21-point games. He has been very difficult for me to click, and I don't even think it's all Diggs. Actually, I think Josh Allen has been a little bit poor throwing the ball and really taking his head down when he sees the rush pretty quickly. But
have you noticed this too?
Yeah, oh yeah. Diggs is.
I was putting it out there. You could tell I was a little bit tentative because I'm like, I'm just saying. And then so thank you for backing me up on this, Eric.
He's been really disappointing, and a couple times, same as you, on a couple of my best season long or best ball teams, I had Diggs, and I'll never forget. It was it 2 weeks ago or anyway? Obviously it wasn't this past week, but 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. He gets a blitz look, right? Josh Allen, sorry for the people who don't like the hand in the dirt stuff, but he gets it. Literally everyone's at the line of scrimmage, man to man, one deep safety. Diggs is one-on-one. They do blitz. And Diggs beats his guy down the sideline. Like, this is the dream. You're like, holy shit, they just gifted me a 70-yard touchdown to Stephon Diggs situation. Throw it to him. He's your superstar against one-on-one coverage. He just took his head down and ran off to the right like a 16-year-old high school quarterback when they see the blitz. And it was frustrating. So I have a little bit of concerns about the Bills just kind of overall, and I think Diggs is the one who it hurts the most because he does, at his price and everything, need a lot of volume and need this production, whereas Allen can still run. Gabe, it takes one catch, right? Knox the tight end. Cook, it does, Cook and Singletary, it doesn't matter. So I just have some Diggs concerns.
I mean, Josh Allen's yards per game, throwing out the last game, just look at weeks 11 through 16 in the second half. He's averaging like 210 yards a game throwing the ball. It's weird.
It's not great.
I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying.
Dario,
something's not right.
We need a counterpoint to what
no,
yeah,
Dario,
I think
it's
Are you gonna cape up for your man here, Josh Allen?
I think that Josh Allen, he'll get you there with the rushing stuff, like Eric said. I don't think you need to be too afraid of playing Josh Allen in that sense. But I think probably, I'm still inclined to play him with Diggs. Like, I think they've had some throws this year where you can tell that their connection is just like on another level. But I think you guys are also the fact that the Patriots and Belichick do like to, lock down your top guy and all that stuff. I think that it's probably play a little bit less of a Diggs week, but I mean, he's still the best receiver in this offense, no doubt. So I think that you probably if you're stacking Josh Allen, you're not going to be like, I'm ignoring Diggs this week.
Yeah, because it's not like anybody. It's not like Diggs started struggling because, right? It's like Thielen was the number one for the Vikings, and then Justin Jefferson arrived, and it was like, oh, buddy, there's a new sheriff in town. There's not a new sheriff in town. It's just nobody's eating. Like none of the wide receivers.
No one but Dawson Knox is consistently producing the last 3 weeks. And it's not like there's a lack of target consolidation. It's not like they've been getting Shakir involved or anything like that. It's what we wanted. It's exactly what we wanted. Diggs and Davis, what we wanted. And Allen's not throwing for 400 yards a game like he was in the first half of the season. It's just not. It's not it. He had some injuries. He had a shoulder injury, an elbow injury. Remember, he was hour to hour at one point.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, something's going on, man. Something mental is going on. Something physical becomes mental, becomes physical, becomes fantasy relevant.
Jesus. Yes.
I think
that is technically true.
This is what's going on. So I'm not saying you don't play him. I'm saying exposure dialed down on the stack. Yes, Thornton is a great run back. He's 3.3K. It's great. I mean, he's coming off an 8-target game. It's beautiful. It's exactly what you want in tournaments. They're winding down. I mean, they're getting ready to ship all these guys to hell. You know that. Bourne, Parker, Aguilar. They're putting them all in some kind of command capsule, and they're going to shoot them off to the moon when this season's over. They can't wait to just have a brand new wide receiver room next year. If I were them, I'd be like, oh my God.
Right.
I'm like counting down the hours.
Yeah, Thornton's route participation has been really encouraging the last 2 weeks. He's been on the field more than any receiver other than Jacoby Myers. Like there was that massive Kendrick Bourne game out of left field, but even in that game, Tyquan Thornton ran more routes 2 weeks ago. So I think, yeah, I love the Thornton run back there too. And keep in mind the Patriots do have something to play for as well. Like if they, I don't know if they're win and in, but I think if they win and the Dolphins lose, they're in, and the Dolphins are starting Skylar Thompson. So there's a lot of the AFC 7 seed is kind of in a weird spot because you have like the Dolphins, the Patriots, or the Steelers, just like all kind of,
well, we have
none of them deserving.
The new show we have, the Juice betting show on Player Profile. I was talking to Ahan and Shervan last night, and Dolphins are now a 3-point favorite against the Jets.
Yeah, Flacco's in now. Yeah.
So it moved from like -2 to -3 with Flacco, as if Flacco's a big downgrade. I don't even consider him a downgrade. It's not like Mike. You guys like, since when is Mike White this like franchise caliber? Get out of here.
Right? I feel confident in my pro Mike White stance before having seen the betting market back me, even though I never felt less confident than watching Mike White on Sunday, because holy shit, he was terrible.
He looked shaky. Like it's almost like that's who Mike White is. Right. The Cinderella glass slipper smashing in front of our face.
Isn't he the typical backup quarterback though? Like actually he's an NFL level backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Competent enough to come in and like in the right situation make some throws. But then, like you said, the Cinderella thing, everybody now thinks, oh my God, right? He's the guy, right? Like people did this with Minshew and Hurts last year. It was like they wanted Minshew best example over Hurts.
Is the team we're just talking about, the Patriots. They had this guy. Remember, there were legitimate questions in New England about whether Mac Jones was going to be permanently benched.
I also like Bailey Zappi, to be clear. I want to put that on the record.
Remember the zapping? It's all zapping. Dario, that was beautiful. He came up with that catchphrase. That was great. But the bottom line is I can't figure that line out. I was like, if there's a lot of bets I like this week, just incidentally, and Jets +3, you got to love that. So that's another part of it. It's like I think that the Patriots are going to be looking at this game and going all out because they're like, listen, Dolphins are losing, baby.
Yeah, definitely. And to wrap on kind of what Dario was saying, the Patriots clinched the wild card with a win. but obviously I don't think they're relying necessarily. They want to, have some outs in case they lose to, the best team in the NFL. They still have an outside shot at a wild card spot. If they lose, the Dolphins lose, the Steelers lose, and the Jaguars win. So they'll kind of know, but obviously that doesn't, for DFS purposes, they'll be playing to win regardless. But they do have an outside shot. Let's move on to a game where I definitely don't have any questions personally about the old wide receiver one on this team. I might have some questions elsewhere, but the Minnesota Vikings face the Chicago Bears, the Nathan Peterman led Chicago Bears, no Justin Fields this week. And the Bears defense is still really, 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 really bad. And the Vikings should pretty much name their score. Dario, do we have any concerns about the Vikings? And then if so, if not, kind of elaborate on what your Justin Jefferson thoughts are, Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, etc.
I'm pretty sure that the Vikings still have some roundabout weird way of can they get the 1 seed? I'm not. I think that I think that right they're definitely playing to win because I'm pretty sure the Niners are in the late window, and the Niners winning or losing will affect the Vikings seeding. So I think the Vikings are far from locked in between 2 and 3. And possibly 1. I don't remember if they can still get the 1, like I said. But, Justin Jefferson is less than 200 yards away from Calvin Johnson's record. Obviously, last game with only 15 yards put a big dent in that single-season record chase. But, like we just said, the Bears' defense is Swiss cheese. And I think if Jefferson tells, O'Connell and Kirk Cousins, hey, I'm going after the record today. Just throw me the ball 15 times. We could see that happen.
Kevin O'Connell was quoted as saying, just in relation to the team in this game, not to Justin Jefferson, I think it would probably be more subtle than just sitting starters, knowing that the 2 seed is still available for us. So that means to me, we're going to Dalvin's going to sit a couple extra series for Madison, right? Maybe Jefferson doesn't play 100% of snaps, things like that, as opposed, especially once it gets out of hand. But assuming it gets out of hand, if this one doesn't get out of hand, God, the Vikings are already fraudulent. This would really be
it's only a plus 7.5 line
against Nathan. Justin Fields couldn't keep it within 35 of the Lions last week, and now it's Nathan Peterman. If the Lions don't just stomp these guys, but Matt, do you have
it just shifted to plus 5.5? Look, just as we were talking. How is this possible?
Is somebody sitting?
I don't know if someone's sitting. I think that Vegas must be getting information that is not publicly available at this time about potential scenarios of guys not playing the full game in Minnesota.
And to be fair to anyone not watching this live, or if you are watching this live, this is about the time when all the news starts piling in. So there may be something that drops while we are, especially in week 18, while we are recording, and certainly thereafter. So, if Justin Jefferson gets ruled out, you can disregard a lot of this. But Matt, what do you think about this one? I imagine you don't have the same concerns with Justin Jefferson, but do you have any Vikings concerns at all, given they have motivation, but it's not maybe as strong as some other spots? It's not even as strong as the Bills.
I'm telling you, man, this line is so weird. 5.5. If you ask me, I would have thought it would be more likely to be 10.5 than 5.5.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm not understanding it. This makes me feel very weird and nervous about what's going on here. So I know we want, it's just tough, man. With Cousins, you got to double stack him. It's very tricky.
And Irv Smith is coming back.
Oh, shut your mouth.
Who is in the Cody's in the dang chat asking about min price Irv Smith. I don't think I want to play min price. We don't we had to try to talk Matt into playing Jamar Chase off of an injury. I don't think I can play Irv Smith off of 3 months away from football.
Can we play all just? We can't play the receivers we want, the elite receivers, plus also play Josh Palmer and KJ Osborne, all those guys. I mean, KJ Osborne is going to play no matter what. He's going to be out there no matter what.
I could be sold on KJ Osborne.
This is the Josh Palmer corollary. These are the guys that we know are going to be out there the whole game, either in the number 3 capacity or in the fourth quarter in the number 1 capacity.
Yeah, he caught the most garbage time touchdowns last week.
It was beautiful. He was on my best ball team. I had a god awful week 17. That was like the blown positive shining moment. KJ Osborne, totally useless touchdown. Here's the name that I was thinking about when we were talking these garbage time guys. When they got to garbage time last week, it was not Jalen Reagor that was out there playing. It was Jalen Naylor that was out there playing. And he was balling against the Packers. I know it's 3 catches for 89 yards. It was in a quarter, basically. And every time you looked up during garbage time, this dude was catching a 30-yard pass. Oh, yeah. And he was a reasonable. I'll let you guys elaborate. I obviously watched him at Michigan State and stuff, but I thought he was a reasonable prospect as a wide receiver, kind of deep threat-ish, which made sense, catching some deep balls. He was the one guy I wanted to touch on here. And it was, honestly, I'll admit, if he hadn't been out there doing it last week in garbage time, I wouldn't have thought about it. But if this game is going to get some of that garbage time, I mean, this is the guy. He would be the guy that's out there too. So, I don't know if we need to discuss Jalen Naylor in detail.
26% target share during the COVID year, only 7 games that year. I mean, because of the COVID timeline when he was in college, he never played more than 9 games in a season. So he's a hard guy to scout. So whenever a guy like that gets drafted, you pay attention. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, this guy wasn't that dominant, but that's okay. But when you recalibrate the games he played, his dominator rating on Player Profiler was 62nd percentile. That's pretty good, right? He's got great burst. He's comparable to guys like Sterling Shepard, right? Guys that are, small, not necessarily burners, but have been productive in college. That's the Sterling Shepard archetype that he fits in. So, yeah, absolutely 90 yards on 5 catches. Very, very understandable and expected if he's in there for at least 3 quarters. But I don't think that's going to happen, right? I think it would be nice if we just knew if the NFL cared about fantasy and betting as they should, then there would be all these policies about announcing all this information well in advance. That's the polite thing to do, but they're not going to do any of this, right? They're just going to keep everybody in the dark, and we're not going to know.
It would also be better for the players. Like,
yes,
you go out and you say, look, Tom is playing 2 series, or Tom is not, I'm Tom Brady, right? This whole, maybe he'll play 1, maybe he'll play the first half. I don't know. It's like, yes, you do. And there's no reason they use the competitive advantage thing during the course of the season. Remember when Lovey wouldn't joke when Lovey wouldn't say who was starting between Brandon Allen and Davis Mills because he didn't want to give the other team. They were like playing I forget who they're playing, like, a really good team, and he's like, he didn't want to give away who the quarterback was, for the competitive advantage. I'm like, that's obviously nonsense, but at least I could say, okay, it's a meaningful game, regular season or whatever. Week 18, it's like everyone knows it doesn't mean anything. Like, let the young players know how much they're going to play ahead of time. And then like you said, let the revenue driving forces of your whole damn sport.
Yeah, it undergirds the whole sport, dude. Jesus. I mean, there are some interesting potential options, down the board at quarterback. Sam Howell was a tactical scrambler in college. Desmond Ridder and Tyrod Taylor. So there are some interesting, not Sam Ehlinger. Okay. Jeez, not Sam Ehlinger. Remember Sam Ehlinger chalk week?
Yeah, that was a good week.
Remember that one? That one, Zay Jones chalk week. We've had some fun chalk weeks that were pretty comical. Yes, but that's a different ball game. You get down to Ridder. That Ridder's kind of an interesting guy, right? So it's just a lot harder to play our game, right? The game we play for the first 17 weeks of the season is we find these games, we stack them up, and we profit, right? Because we know we're getting leverage with these correlations, and it's money well spent. You have to dial down the correlation, don't you? Isn't this more of a value game where you're going to have more minimal correlation this week because you really can only single stack? And even when you're single stacking one side of a game, yes, we have Tyquan Thornton's a great gift, right? 3.3K, perfect run back. That's actually the presence of Tyquan Thornton actually makes Josh Allen a lot more attractive to me than he would otherwise be, given his struggles. But some of these other games, you don't even have that. It's so tricky. Like the Bears, get out of here. What are you going to do? You're going to Cole Kmet.
You're not playing any Giants against the Eagles this week.
That's what I was.
It's crazy.
Like Cody's out here touting Valus, Uncle Valus Jones,
James.
and I just it's
Richie
tough.
James has been good.
Let's talk about that game though, because I do want to talk. Well, obviously I want to talk the Eagle side because I think we need to talk about Hurts, and how we feel about him, coming back for this game. What does that mean for him or anyone's fantasy relevance? Last week was an abject failure for the Eagles. My goodness. I mean, they should have this 1 seed locked away a long time ago, but
how much money do you think Minshew lost?
A lot of money.
Minshew lost a lot of very
millions of dollars on lifetime earnings.
I mean, it was Musk and Minshew lost the most money.
Sounds like
I don't know.
Law firm.
SBF has to be up there too.
SBF,
I think that was a couple weeks earlier.
The law firm of Musk and Minshew. I like this.
That's it. I love it, man. A lot of money gone.
But seriously, I mean, he probably would have got a really hefty bridge QB contract. I don't know if he's signed for next year, so I don't want to speak too out of turn. But I mean, there's like 12 good quarterbacks in the whole NFL. Everybody has been so excited for Gardner Minshew. It's like, dude, just don't screw up. And that's what he did against Dallas. Like, okay, didn't screw up. Then went out against the Saints and looked like Mike White did. Except Mike White doesn't have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and everything. It was really bad. But this week 18 GPPs, Jalen Hurts is back.
Thank God.
Thank God. Gets the Giants probably a lot of backups on defense. The Eagles are playing to win, so they should theoretically score as many points as they would like, but you would have to assume, similar to the Vikings thing, if they get out ahead, there's no real reason to push it too hard, right? We're up by 30 in the third quarter. We don't need to be, running Jalen Hurts type of things. We probably don't even need to be running Miles Sanders, although I'm not sure they give a shit about Miles Sanders.
I wouldn't overthink this one. He's been off for weeks, and they're going to be looking at another off week. So play him. Get him sharp. Get him all the stats he can. Get Devontae Smith like the franchise record for receptions. Get it all. Go after it all, man. I love this. I love this situation. Run it back with Richie James.
So that's what I was going to ask. So this is in the afternoon. This is in the afternoon window. I agree with you on Hurts. Question for both of you: Hurts or Josh Allen? Ignoring the stack, Hurts or Josh Allen this week? Who do you prefer? Similar ownership. They're similar.
I'm going Hurts for all the reasons we talked about earlier. I prefer Hurts this week.
I'm gonna say Allen just because of the emotional situation. I think the Bills have like if he has a 5 touchdown game, I don't think anyone would be surprised.
All right, checkmate, Dario. You win.
That is checkmate. There's not an argument you can make, at least not in public, against.
I have no retorts.
Against that. I think. It is really tough though. The thing that I like, you mentioned Tyquan Thornton. I wanted to get into the Giants because they are going to be resting, quote unquote, several key starters, whatever that means. I mean, I assume Daniel Jones and Saquon, but they really don't have any other key.
Wait a second. Oh my God. Wait, are you saying Is Richie James a key starter?
I think so. That's what I was going to ask. Are Richie James, Darius Slayton, are they keys? Is Isaiah Hodgins a key? Like, what's a key? We're going to get Kenny Galladay in garbage time of week 8. He's going to be out there finally playing.
This is exactly what I had to think about when I was projecting week 18, guys. So I was like looking at the Giants receiver room, like, are these guys key starters? Like, what's going to happen here? Like, I mean, they can't, are they just going to play like 3 tight end formations all game?
Right.
Like, it's,
27-year-old Middle Tennessee State retread, been out of the league 7 different times for 7 different teams. Richie James is now a key player. I love him. I love him. He had like a 1,600-yard season in college. I love Richie James, but I'm just saying, this is weird.
I mean, take away the name and look at these box scores. 7 targets, 7 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. 12 targets, 8 catches, 90 yards. 5 targets, 4 catches, 42. 9. This is better than Stephon Diggs' game log. This looks like a key. This looks like a key starter to me. Is this not a key starter?
Hodgins is too. Then
pull up Hodgins too.
Hodgins is like the same. Hodgins, not quite as much juice, but the guy's still doing it every single week. 4 for 42 and a touchdown. 8 for 89 and a touchdown. 4 for 37. 4 for 38 and a touchdown. 5 for 44 and a touchdown. It's like,
and they signed him off the Bills practice squad in season this year, right? Like,
so is there a clear, not a talent level of Tyquan Thornton, but I think there could be something here on the Giants. You could also, if Saquon sits, is it going to be Breida? Or are they going to play Gary Brightwell? It's been a little bit.
I think it's probably going to be a split between the two of them. So there's probably not a ton of excitement around either. I mean, they are probably, I would say, more inclined to protect Breida since he's like legitimately their backup to Saquon, and they have
also very
literally
fragile.
Nothing to play for. But yeah, I think I'd probably, I mean, roll the. It's the difference in salary that makes me hesitate to say, oh, you might as well just like play Brightwell or Breida as opposed to the receivers, because at least with the receivers, like, you can play Galladay or Marcus Johnson for literally.
Marcus Johnson actually had played a lot more snaps, ran a lot more routes than Galladay last week. It might be Marcus Johnson.
And Marcus Johnson, it was weird. I think he was sort of in that Isaiah Hodgins role where seemed like he was getting elevated and running a lot more routes, and then that kind of just disappeared. He, like, I guess he fell out of the favor of the coaches really quickly mid-season.
But hasn't he been like a week 17, week 18 guy for like the last 5 years?
Right, on the Colts.
I feel like this is his job, is to light it up.
I kind of think so
too. In week 18. Isn't this why he was created?
It's kind of like a guy who we don't need to talk much about, but they have a tight end, Tanner Hudson, on the Giants, who has been a preseason DFS god forever, because he's always just good enough to compete for one of those last roster spots, but he's a receiving type option, so that he's out there for 3 quarters, right, in these meaningless preseason games. That's what Marcus Johnson kind of feels like at wide receiver to me. So I'm not going to.
So Marcus Johnson had a stretch in Indianapolis where he had 120 receiving yards in 3 out of 4 weeks. He also had a 158-yard week and 117-yard week in there.
He's got a bunch of 100-yard games.
Yeah, and he's sorry, that was Galladay.
Oh, but Marcus Johnson has one.
I was like, a bunch.
Oh no, that's terrible! I went all this whole season without making one of those kind of blunders. Oh, I couldn't make it through week 18 without an egregious mistake.
Fun fact: guess how many 100-yard games Marcus Johnson has?
I bet he has more than 2.
Dario,
I was just looking at the same thing as Matt was saying. I think I saw 2 or 3.
3, yeah, he said 3. He also, we're gonna get real fun. It's week 18. Why not? The very first team that Marcus Johnson played for in the NFL, week 18 opponent, Philadelphia Eagles. Revenge. He is the week 18 archetype of a wide receiver, and this team cut him after his rookie season, and he's bounced around the league ever since. Now he gets a chance to pay it back to him on the Giants.
Wow.
Yep.
He was an
go.
Eagle?
Tyron Taylor does throw a nice deep ball.
He was an Eagle. He actually got to play in the first game of his rookie season. I'm learning a lot today on this show, guys. How old is he? 20.
He's
my God.
Fascinating guy.
Yeah, yes, he's
still, he's okay. At least I knew he had multiple 100-yard games.
Yeah, 3.
That's good.
Good for him.
He's the Stone Min.
But
let's go,
Marcus
Johnson.
Spent a lot of time on Marcus Johnson, but I think to your point, it's interesting to dive into some of these run back type guys, because you know what's going to happen right in roster construction and ownership is our conversations about playing Jalen Hurts to AJB or Allen to Diggs. That's not profound. Everybody's like, are you interested in Jalen Hurts? Yes. But then when you get down to the value stuff, it's always going to be like the new shiny toy, right? Okay, Jonathan Williams, everybody just jams Jonathan Williams because Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are out, or everybody just, which I'm not sure that I would do necessarily this week. But anyway, there's all those value guys that are going to be the new thing, right? The sure backup that's playing. And talking about Marcus Johnson and talking about Tyquan Thornton and those kind of guys, I think that's the biggest leverage point of this slate this week, as opposed to our normal, let's maybe find a game stack that's a little different.
Are we sure though that I'd like to get into the head of the coaches in New York. I feel like they might think that Slayton is like their number one, and that they'd be fine playing Hodgins and James or one of them for the full game.
I would bet Hodgins plays more than I would bet the other two.
Yeah. I think I wish we knew. I wish it was more clear, right? Because clearly we know like where KJ Osborne sits, even though KJ Osborne's technically better at this point than Thielen. That's not how the coaches view them.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Josh Palmer. If we just knew who they think of as their top two receivers are, that would be really helpful. But when you look at their performances the last month, you can't distinguish these three guys. You know, Slayton's top of the depth chart, the official depth chart, so you really can't play him. Between Hodgins and James, it's a real riddle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Hodgins has played slightly more snaps over the last 5 weeks, but James has seen more targets in the same stretch. So it's like
I almost think that they might play James. My first instinct, my gut told me James was a great run back. I don't think I'm off it.
I think it's one thing is, so Richie James plays mostly in the slot, correct? Whereas Hodgins is a big
more of an outside
slow
like
guy
6'4",
on the outside. Yeah. And red zone type guy. Do they have another? I mean, I'm sure they have a guy who can play there, but that also can.
Kenny Galladay can play out there.
Yeah, Kenny Galladay.
That's the big question, Eric. That's the big question we've been asking ourselves for years. Can Kenny Galladay play the Hodgins role?
This is what people were debating all offseason when they were drafting Kenny Galladay in the 11th round or whatever. Like, can he step in and fill in for Isaiah Hodgins? This conversation is making my head hurt with Marcus Johnson.
It's really tricky, man.
It is really tricky, but I think there's juice to squeeze from this group. It's just I don't know if we'll be able to figure out where the juice is, right? But I think that there's something here because the Giants are going to hang a huge number. Tyrod is not good, but it's not Skylar Thompson or something like that. Like I feel confident, if somebody gets open, Tyrod can get him the ball. And so I think all those guys are pretty interesting. I know we just left it wide open for the viewers. You guys decide.
Well, question for Dario here. Well, listen, man, this is why you tune into the Stackfest, because we who are the fringe run backs that you need to be thinking about?
Mm-hmm.
Tyrod, cash viable, right?
I think so. I mean, they're going to be chasing points. He's not as cheap as some of the other, as like a Howell or Flacco, but it's not. But I'm really that big a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I think that it comes down to like how long the Eagles starters are in the game, right? If the Eagles' good defensive players are off the field for like most or all of the second half, and Tyrod gets like easily to, 250 and 2 touchdowns in total garbage time, I think that's like kind of looking up for him.
Yeah.
Good call. All right, let's talk about out of our 2.5 games left. Let's definitely talk about the one where we know for certain both teams are playing to win. We have the full starters, except Lamar Jackson is not playing. The other side of the unfortunate Monday night game, the Bengals come in and not the same level of necessarily emotional, energy that they'll be bringing, but they're playing for a whole lot here in this game. That 2 seed is right there for the taking. I think they're really peaking to me. The Bengals are a really exciting team. We've kind of talked about them for a while. 2 months ago or something, Matt talked about their O-line really starting to gel, right? Chase comes back. They hit the ground running. Hayden Hurst is back. Joe Mixon came back from his injury. The defense is, slowly getting healthier. Everything is really coming together. Matt and I talked about Eli Apple the other day, and somehow this guy's turned into a competent football player. Everything's really coming together for the Bengals. They feel like Joe Burrow feels like this almost like lock and load. I don't know that he can do what Hurts and Allen can do, but every single week, and particularly this week, Burrow just feels like this dude who I feel really confident is going to go out and put up a good score. What does that mean? Does that mean 24? Does that mean 35? I don't know, but I'm not worried about them pulling him, in the third quarter up by 21. But I'm just excited about the Bengals, not so much excited about the Ravens. But Dario, how do you feel about Bengals Ravens here? Sans Lamar.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, when I set out these games and I looked at all 5 of these offenses, because these are, like I said, really just one-sided stacking games. I think the Bengals are the most exciting one to play. They, are effectively coming off a bye week, and I think that their emotional driving purpose right now is not quite the same as the Bills, but they kind of got the short end of the stick from the way the NFL accommodated all this bye week seeding nonsense, because basically the Ravens were told if you're a half a game behind, we'll give you a coin toss to see who gets home field. But the Bengals could finish a half a game out of the 1 seed, and they're not getting a coin toss for the 1 seed. So, I mean, some of the stuff coming out of their locker room today, and the way, like you guys said, the way that team has just been playing for the last month and a half, the defense is insanely good. Joe Burrow's dialed in. I think this is by far the offense that I'm most excited to stack this week.
What do you think, Matt?
Well, my question is, who do you run it back with, as usual? And I J.K. Dobbins finally got to 50% snap share last week. Hit it right on the nose. So he's been going up 35%. I mean, the yardage has been driven by big plays. So you can't look at that, but you look at the snap share, 35, 38, 45, 50. He's getting healthier. He's looking better. He's explosive. He can get you the 100-yard bonus. He can get you a touchdown. He can put up 20 fantasy points. So he's an option. Demarcus Robinson. I mean, you can't find guys that are going to – Demarcus Robinson has this fringy maybe path to 15 fantasy points. And then you've got Mark Andrews. It's just that, Huntley can't deliver the football. That's why Andrews not even – he's priced below Kittle, below Hawkinson. And no one's surprised, though he went 9 for 9 last week. That's probably best case scenario, 22 fantasy points without a touchdown.
Yeah, he got to 100 yards without a touch, or 100 yards, 19 points, no touchdown. I think that for me, it's still Andrews because the targets are a lot flukier with Demarcus Robinson. And like you said, Mark Andrews is no longer right with Kelley, where playing him is just a huge salary burden, and you're gonna have to work around it. It's sure he's a more expensive tight end, but he's no longer prohibitively expensive, and I think he's gonna get those looks. I mean, he's got at least 5 targets every week since week 8, and most of those games it's at least 7 targets. So I think he's gonna get those looks from Huntley. Whether he's able to turn that into a good game for you, it's not
Well, yeah, for sure. You're going to be, in terms of run backs, you're probably going to be 70% on Andrews, maybe 30% on Dobbins. There was no receivers are usable, right?
I don't think so. Not this week. Because of the week 18 element, there's gonna be guys, right? We haven't talked about a ton of them, but like there's gonna be guys that pop up that are 3K or whatever. The benefit of Demarcus Robinson on a normal slate is that there aren't those guys, right? The punts are like really bad fourth wide receivers on teams.
But so and the thing is, though, they don't have anyone that you're excited about. They don't have anyone who's interesting, right? Like Jalen Naylor. If they had a Jalen Naylor, we would have a conversation.
Throwing the ball.
It's freaking Sammy Watkins. It's Deshaun Jackson getting their 2 targets for 19 yards.
Andy Isabella.
Get the hell out of here.
Okay, now we're talking. Let's talk about Andy Isabella. No, I'm kidding. I did. Oh man, I will never forget the amount of Andy Isabella was like the Jalen Tolbert of a few years ago in fantasy football, where I drafted so much of him and literally was not even active most game days, and then finally got on special teams, and then everybody got hurt, and he finally caught 1 long touchdown, and that was like the most fun I've ever had on a Monday Night Football game.
Yay!
So shout out to Andy. It's all these washed up losers on the Ravens, right? Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, and Andy Isabella. Like,
crazy.
what are we doing?
It's crazy. I mean, also it's like even a Demarcus Robinson. I'll pull out the Red Zone channel will come up, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Let's see what the Ravens can do. Demarcus Robinson drop in the back of the end zone. It's like, bro, you'd only get so many opportunities. If you can't drop that, what the hell? What is your value if you're not squeezing that football? Jesus.
Yeah, he was so good playing with Patrick Mahomes.
Come on,
he can't even do anything with Patrick Mahomes. He's going to produce with Tyler Huntley and Anthony Brown.
It's not good.
So I think
some of these plays where it's like, listen, at least with a Jalen Naylor, what I'm saying is he could be pretty good,
right?
And you get a low salary, good player, good team, good situation. You don't play Demarcus Robinson under any circumstances because he's not good. And we know that the quarterback is not a volume quarterback. So it's the way he gets there is such a fringy set of scenarios. No, man. So it's just Andrews. Man, given how much I think the level of certainty we have with this particular game and this particular stack, the Burrow stacks, it's almost like Andrews would be with this. It's so few options at tight end that you can rely on, right? We talked about, Schultz and how that's fringy, and Everett, we don't have certainty. And now Hawkinson has Herb Smith and down the board. You could look up and your most owned player in your portfolio is actually Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I think so too. The positional thing is huge this week. I think, as Dario said, the price has come down so much. I mean, 5,400 is not cheap, still necessarily for a tight end, but you're not paying those Kelley prices anymore. It's not that much of a cost prohibitive slate relative to some other slates. And again, 5,400. I mean, we've been talking about the likes of Kittle and Hawkinson for weeks, and they've been around that price, right? And so I don't see why you can't play Mark Andrews at the same price we've been playing, say,
like that
George
ton
Kittle.
Of him.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is we don't have a lot to glean from the first matchup of these two teams this year, because that was I believe it was the Phantom T doesn't play game, whether he got hurt in warm-ups or whatever it was. And then if I recall, they basically just like doubled Chase all game and said, okay, Trenton Irwin, go for it. Although Trenton Irwin apparently not quite as bad at football as everybody thought. But if you recall, when the Ravens defense really got banged up last season, a little bit different situation. Chase just went absolutely bonkers, and as did Burrow in this spot. And so I think that it's just a generally good matchup, I think, for the way that the Bengals play offense. If Burrow gets man, he doesn't make the mistake I was talking about earlier that Allen did with Diggs. He's like, it's one-on-one to Chase. Guess who's getting the ball? I'm giving him a shot to do it, right? He'll do it with T, etc. So I just these guys are like old reliable to me, and I think Andrews kind of becomes that old reliable tight end to me, and we can make whatever work with those guys in it. One last thing on these: do you have a preference between Chase, T? Are you double stacking him, Dario? Any Boyd? Boyd came out hot, had a touchdown the other night, and then Hayden Hurst if you're not going to use Andrews. Just anything extra in this game?
I think that, looking at these ownership numbers, it's funny because I don't think they've come through yet on our player pages for some reason. So this is my first look at your guys' projected ownership. But
yeah, a lot of things, player props, a lot of stuff is in flux right now.
Mm-hmm. But I think that, looking at that gap in ownership, I think you have to love playing T. Higgins. And then, like you said, Hayden Hurst, I think he had 2 catches in the first 10 minutes of that Monday night game. He seems to be back and involved. So I think that it's all go on the Bengals weapons. You can double or even triple stack Burrow with 2 or 3 of those guys as you see fit, as you can, jam into a lineup accordingly.
Anything else, Matt, in this one?
I agree with Dario. Higgins, baby. Higgins, and don't forget, Higgins, Andrews, skinny stacks elsewhere.
Yep.
That's why that when I was doing the math in my head, that's why I was like, well, we're also going to have a lot of Andrews skinny stacks. So that means it the way it shakes out, you're going to be maximum sort of exposed to Andrews this week.
Here's a quick another little fun stat. Maybe not quite as fun as how many 100-yard games as Marcus Johnson had in his career. Total passing yards for Joe Burrow against the Ravens last season.
Oh, it was like 1,000.
Almost 1,000.
Nice.
I remember that.
Almost 1,000. In the second game was the one the first game I'm pulling, I was pulling up the box scores and I'm like, it was only 403. I'm like, I felt like it was more like only 403 is like a bad thing. And then you pull up the second one and you see hold on, that just closed on me. And you see 525 yards and four touchdowns with it was actually T in the second one that went for 12 for 194 and 2 touchdowns in that game. Chase had a very disappointing 7 for 125. Just a casual 125 yards. So yeah, pretty into the Bengals here. Let's talk about.
Hold on, real quick, just so you know, weather in Cincinnati, 40 degrees with 5-mile-an-hour winds.
Okay, don't do that.
No, I just want to make sure everybody knows. This game is a smash. There's nothing to hold you back here, and I'm to the point where there's so much uncertainty with all these other stacks. I was trying to think back through the weeks if there was another stack or another quarterback. Just talk about say Burrow stacks, where you'd be your ownership would be more skewed, right? So not only would Andrews be the most heavily owned player in your portfolio, but also that Burrow, you'd be more exposed to Burrow as a percentage of if you were max entering to a large field tournament than any other stack in any other week of the season.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable.
No,
I just don't. I know there were a few weeks where we absolutely loved like Mahomes that week, right?
Right.
But there was typically at least 2 other stacks we really liked. This is a rare scenario where it's like this stack is so far above the others, both in terms of upside and certainty.
And one thing I really like say even if you're like playing 10 teams or like 20 max, right? Like DraftKings will have like the $4 20 max and different stuff like that. But even if you're 150ing or any form of multi-entry, the really cool thing about going all in on a Bengals stack is you do kind of have like some bases you would like to cover, right? T versus Chase is the most obvious one. It's like, I don't want to have all T. I don't want to have all Chase. I want mostly Andrews, like you said, but I want a little Dobbins, right? I want a little Hurst, and then in that case, maybe then I want a little Hurst, right? I want a sprinkle of Boyd, whatever. There's a few different. So I really like that, and then we can mix in all these no pun intended with Mixon while we're talking about this.
That's the second time you've done that.
God damn it. We need this season to be over. But all those other, right? Let's get some Jefferson on that team. Let's get some Diggs and Tyquan on that team and those kinds of things, right? There's your Marcus Johnson or Richie James with Hurts or not Hurts with the AJ Brown or, there's a lot of fun things, but then you can really capture this game. I really like this.
Yeah, they're a pretty clear stack to build around. I would agree. And I think one thing I want to point out too is the Bengals lost to the Ravens the first time they played each other this season. So it's not just like, oh, they have to win for playoff reasons. Like, this is a divisional rivalry. They could be seeing each other again next week. Like, the Bengals have every incentive to really hang a big number on the Ravens. So I think, all the more reason to fire away with this game.
Good call. And our last game that we might talk about one more game after this, but the last one that is officially on both sites. These sites, man. My God, it's the end of the season. We don't have to change up the slate strategy on week 18. But Arizona travels to San Francisco. San Francisco, I don't know if Jared Stidham is just that good, or maybe he's just the Niners kryptonite, because they just been laying the smackdown on everybody, and Stidham came in and just about took them out last week, almost full strength, no Debo, but it looks like Debo will be back this week. It looks like Elijah Mitchell will also be back this week, which is somewhat interesting. The Cardinals are, down in the dumps. I should look, I guess. Did it say, so Colt McCoy is out, or they're just not playing him and they're playing David Blau? I can't remember, but Rondale is out. DeAndre Hopkins is out. All these guys are out. Last week we saw Trey McBride pop up for a huge game on the Cardinals side, and quite a bit of targets for Hollywood Brown. So I think some of the run back talk will be at least mildly interesting. James Conner is also not going to play in this game. Tough matchup, but the Niners should score Dario about as many points as they want, and they got a lot of appealing guys. How do you feel about the Niners? Because they're one of those where we know they're going to score a bunch, or I believe we know they're going to score a bunch, but who are you favoring with, especially with Debo back?
Yeah, I think Debo back makes it really interesting. And I think Elijah Mitchell back is underrated as well, because that at least caps Christian McCaffrey's percentage of the rushing game. I think that, it's hard not to trust Kittle right now, the way that he's been playing lately. And then Ayuk has also been putting on a clinic these last 6 weeks or so. So I think that it's still tough to read. I think probably Kittle the best, just because he operates in that area of the field. It's a little bit closer for Purdy, and I think that Kyle Shanahan is going to design, the plays that are able to get him there. But I do think that this is a game.
I got to disagree. The splits with Debo and without Debo are pretty damning
For Kittle.
Yeah. So they're similar guys. They're yards after the catch monsters that operate short intermediate areas. Just like you said, areas of the field. The guy that's in a unique area is Ayuk. He's playing well with Purdy. And Debo's not really a threat to his area in his role. He's an X receiver. He's playing on the perimeter. Part of the thesis for having so much Andrews is that there is all these issues with all these other tight ends. But I would play more Kittle than Debo. First game back from injury like this, we don't like to play these guys. That's one of our rules. We don't like to play much of them.
And Mitchell is back at the same time. So it's you could maybe, even if you ignored the injury, you could convince yourself, okay, Debo's back. He's 6K. Plus maybe he gets some of that rushing work. It's that running work is gone with Mitchell back, right? And you're not getting any of those, inside the red zone carries for Debo.
Especially in this meaningless game.
Yeah.
I think that if anything, this is a preseason game for Debo, right? They're okay, go play, 3 or 5 drives and let us know how your it was a hamstring, right? How your hamstring or knee?
And I don't remember.
It was an ankle, you're right. Yeah.
Ankle, because he went down and it looked like an ACL when he went down. And I was like, oh, I got 49ers futures over here. And Debo tears his ACL is what I was certain it was an ACL, and I was so mad. And then the next day they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't think it's that serious." I'm like, "He looked like he got shot on the field."
But he did miss a bunch of games.
Yeah,
I can't believe that they get away with that. That's just another thing that they do to basically offend the sensibilities of the people that are spending all the money around the sport. It's not serious.
It's terrible. It's terrible for the player.
You missed a month. What do you mean it's serious? Shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut your mouth.
Speaking of the passing attack, though, here, I think it was before the show, Dario mentioned, if you would, I believe you said something like, if you'd like to get funky, you could play some Brock Purdy stacks. Are you going to play any Brock Purdy stacks? And if so, what's your favorite way? Are you for sure doubling him or just singling him? What's your kind of preference on the Purdy side of things?
I think you can play him. I think that, there's really it's these four guys that we're looking at, right? McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle, and then do you trust Debo in this game?
Mm-hmm.
But I think you just kind of like pick two of those and roll the dice. McCaffrey's obviously the most expensive by a ton. So I think if you're taking him, it's going to be the hardest to work around. But I also think that, he's been so good. I can't stop thinking about the irony of, people drafting him behind Jonathan Taylor because of the injuries, and then Jonathan Taylor missing like 10 games this season. It's just like, it's really bad karma, but also the
Brock Purdy has negative rushing yards in as many games as he has positive rushing yards. Okay, Brock Purdy.
That's because Brock Purdy's a winner and he kneels the ball down.
He has a problem for fantasy football, and that he does not run, and that they are gonna. This is a running game script. So, again, all the more reason to just pound Burrow into the earth.
I have a problem with quarterbacks who, in college, were not even good fantasy assets. Like if you played either college football, DFS, or college, like you play season long or something like that for college football, I can't get, this is a personal issue. I have a mental block. When you play for 5 years in the Big 12 and you can't ever like put up big passing numbers. I know the school he played for, they had Brees and stuff. They were a little bit more of a running team, David Montgomery, but I just can't wrap my right. There's guys throwing for, Kyler's throwing for like 5,000 yards and running for 1,000 yards in the Big 12. And Purdy is putting up, like Vanderbilt quarterback numbers. And
Zappy had 8,000 yards.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's because Zappy's a god. We were blessed from the fantasy gods with Zappy.
College football fantasy right there.
Yes, exactly. He came from really tiny little school to Western Kentucky. But anyway, I just can't wrap. And Purdy, you kind of mentioned the rushing thing. Like he'll move a little bit when it's necessary, but he's not interested in running. I just play the guy. I think he's a distributor. He's like a younger, better version of Jimmy G. I don't know if it's better, worse, whatever, but he's just kind of like Jimmy G. And it's like we were never playing Jimmy G in DFS. Yeah. So let's just play Ayuk and Kittle.
At least he's not getting Kittle injured with by airballing slants.
Jimmy G, the king of the hospital ball. Yeah, at least we don't have to watch that anymore.
At least not that. I appreciate Purdy for that. It's interesting to try to find a good comp for Purdy. It's not that easy. It kind of reminds me of like he's on like a Davis Mills from last year type streak, which is I think a good comp for him.
Mm-hmm. Davis Mills had these weapons. Yeah, that's the thing. He has the best weapons in the NFL.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. But we're going back to Burrow stacks, and then for skinny stacking purposes here, I think that you have Hollywood, which is a great option. He wants to finish the season strong, and so you have Hollywood Ayuk. You can have Hollywood. Do you think McCaffrey plays the whole game?
I do not.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't even think Kittle's going to play the whole game. They do want to keep him healthy. He's very important. Yeah. Ayuk would be the guy. I think Ayuk Brown stacks are very interesting in this game.
Yeah, I think Dortch is viable too. He's had like 21 targets combined in the last 2 games or something like that.
You and Dortch. Remember that? Oh man, I was thinking about you, Dario. I saw Dortch put up like 1.6 fantasy points on 10 targets or something. I thought of you because remember you're like, is this a Dortch week? And I was like, I don't know, Dario. You know, he had 5.5 fantasy points. He was the stone man. Remember we were having this whole conversation?
Oh, I remember.
And then we did it all over again in week 17. Same thing. We were like going through all these guys, Richie James on down the board. You know, some of these guys dudded out hard because they didn't get targets or whatever it was, like Zacchaeus. Some of these guys got the targets. Like the thesis was correct. But the problem with being correct about Greg Dortch is sometimes it doesn't matter because he's Greg Dortch.
I mean, you're ignoring the fact that he averaged, if you take his 2 prior games with where he was actually playing full time, he's averaging 100 yards in those 2 games. So
I did take that into consideration. And then I went to Player Profiler and I find out this guy runs a 4.7 and he's 5'9".
Yeah, and he's like 170 pounds.
So I was like, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt this week. I'm going to play my Richie James.
I will say, I think Dortch, and I prefer Hollywood. I think Trey McBride is in play again. I find it interesting.
Oh yeah.
That Trey McBride came to life last week. 10 targets, 7 for 78, and a touchdown. And he's only 3,300. Obviously, Zach Ertz ain't coming back through that door. I know the matchup is not great, but like, no offense to Hayden Hurst, they're like the same price. Like I'll take the Chase and Higgins side of the Bengals offense. Trey McBride, you know, could be the highest scorer like he was last week for the Cardinals.
Yeah, we got Knox, we got McBride, we got Goddard. Of course, Andrews. There's some. We got some options, right? But yeah, I could see McBride being your second most exposed tight end, just because it's so clear. Like the targets are consolidated. I don't count Dortch as like a factor in like whether or not the ball's gonna go to McBride or not. Sorry, Dario. Again,
but it really went to 3 guys. It really went to 3 guys.
It's consolidated. You love it.
It's really consolidated between 3 guys. And David Blau is not, you know, someone I'm excited about. Shout out to him for still being in the NFL. But I was impressed.
Maybe there's your Purdy comp right there.
It probably is. It probably
if Purdy were on the Lions 2 years ago, he would have been David Blau.
I think David Blau threw for more yards in college than
probably.
We're gonna find that out. But I think
people that follow college football think that don't follow college. They actually think Purdy's good.
Oh yeah, dude,
they actually think he's good.
Their shit. Yeah, people are losing their minds. He's not good.
Like, whoa!
It's like the Minshew thing. It's like
he's thing. It's all over again.
He made a couple good throws. He's throwing to a goddamn Pro Bowl roster.
My dad wanted them to bench Mac Jones for Bailey Zappi.
Well, God bless your dad.
And I was like, Dad, you're falling for it? He was talking about columnist X from the Boston Globe. I'm like, Dad, how many times?
That is great. The running backs. There was one last thing I really like all those guys as bringbacks or skinny stacking partners, right? Dortch, Hollywood, McBride, but James Conner is also out. Now this matchup is about as brutal as it gets for poor old Keontae Ingram and Corey Clement, but they are sub 5K running backs, and we know what James Conner was doing. I assume we're team Keontae here, but as you see on RotoGrinders, a little higher projection for Corey Clement. Dario, do you a Keontae guy or what?
Well, Corey Clement played 42% of snaps last week, and Keontae played none. So that's what's driving their projections and mine. But I think that there's a chance that they do look at this as like, well, it's week 18. We should give the rookie a look because Corey Clement has been around the league. We know what he is. There's plenty of tape on Corey Clement, but
plenty.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's a guy.
28 years old versus 21. 28 years old versus 21. Who do we need to play in week 17 or week 18? I agree.
Play Ingram. So man, Dario, I'm with you, man. I mean, I that really is cold water. We can't play Ingram then?
I think it takes some
know.
cojones.
I mean, it takes like you'd have to have a lot of faith in Cliff Kingsbury,
Oh,
which
damn it.
It is
That
the
just makes it
49ers.
so much worse.
yeah, exactly.
Whenever you have athletic running backs that can catch, I get very excited. So, but I'm also, you can't play guys with 0 snaps. So I just
You can play them; they're just not going to score any.
it's a bummer.
They
man.
can't play is the difference.
What a bummer, man! Come on, audition him.
All right,
Next.
before we
But no, I like Keontae. He was at USC while I was working for the team there my last year, and I think he looks good. But yeah,
Hey,
if he's not on the field.
Looks like a
What
nice
was that?
guy.
Yeah,
he's very nice.
Well, no, some of these guys like they scowl. Like he has like he's a big smile in his headshot. That goes a long way, man. I'm like, okay, I like this guy. You know, like what? All it takes is one headshot to win me.
headshot scouting coming
Yeah.
together profiler next month.
Matt has officially run out of the narrative-based side of things. You know, we did the Isaiah Pacheco. Well, he had 1 target this week. He had 2 targets the next week, and then he had 3 targets. So, what are you projecting him for? 4 targets. You know, now we're into the headshot analysis range of the season. That's how we decide between all these shitty 3K wide receivers that nobody wants to play. You're like, is he smiling in his headshot? Okay, boost up the exposure a few percent because he's a good person, you know?
Not only is the show over, the season's over for us. It
Yes.
seems like we've reached the end of all takes.
I do want to really, really quickly hit the Packers and the Lions, which might have been the game we spent the most time on if it were actually on both sites to play. I just want to really quick hit each of you guys high level thoughts on Packers Lions. First, I guess I'll cover. It's possible the Lions will know that they may not have anything to play for by this game. Correct? That is correct. The Packers need to win regardless. The Lions may need to win, so it could be like one of the games of the year. It also could be, who knows. My take, before I kick it to you guys, is I can't possibly imagine a coach, someone like Dan Campbell, preparing the troops all week for the game of their season, and then even if they find out that they're not playing for anything, backing off. I personally can't see that, so I just think it's wheels up if you want to play this game.
Thank you for saying
straight.
that. I wanted to make sure that was said. Like that.
I feel the same way.
Whether the Seahawks win or not before doesn't matter at all, because you have the guy that's like, all I care about is you guys. It's all I think about, man. It's all I dream about. It's just you guys, man. Don't you understand how much I love you guys? If you think they're not going to play for that, come on, man. They're going to be 100%.
And they can knock the Packers out of the playoffs. They don't like the Packers. Like,
that he's got 2 pregame speeches prepared right now. This exact moment already. It's like, you had a great season. We're not playing for our own playoff berth, but God damn it, if I don't want to knock out those damn Aaron
we
Rodgers
don't care about this
game.
Draft pick because we already have the Rams one that's top 10. So
Right.
go ahead and win.
That's right. There's so many good points we're making here.
But is there? Let's say
St.
it's
Brown,
straight up.
baby.
Yeah, let's say it's straight up.
St. Brown gets inside, right? Alexander is mostly outside, but Alexander can't match up with both Chark and Williams at the same time. He's not 2 people, right?
Yep.
So Chark's definitely going to get opportunities to get away from Alexander. St. Brown's going to be away from Alexander most of the game. So I'm going right back to Chark and St. Brown, baby. And then just watch Williams score 3 touchdowns.
DeAndre Swift finally broke through for us last week. I think if it wasn't for the fact that Justin Jackson is coming back this week, I'd be a lot more excited to play him, because I think Justin Jackson comes back. He'll probably get like a third of the snaps, a third of the carries, a couple targets there. So I think it's kind of hard to get a read on that Lions backfield once again. I'm with you on St. Brown and Chark. And I think that from the Packers side, you can probably play any of Lazard and Dobbs and Watson, probably in the order of Watson, Lazard, Dobbs. So the opposite that I said initially.
I also want to throw out, it's 2 things. I am happy to be Charlie Brown with the football, Lucy with the football, with DeAndre Swift. Anytime, it's always fool's gold. But anytime I see something, I'm like, look, if that wasn't a blowout last week, he would have played X amount of snaps. He would have, it was only because of the blowout. And I do believe that. But also, like you said, he's probably just still going to play, 40% of the snaps. But I think, again, in a must-win game, he's their best player.
Get in there, man.
He was getting a lot of the work right. He's the guy who sat down once it got out of hand. Jamal actually didn't. And so I think it's possible that Swift could be a real difference maker. Again, this game is on FanDuel, or if you're playing Showdown or whatever. And then actually here's a good example of the double running back skinny stack that we've talked a lot about. Don't really like either of these quarterbacks. DeAndre Swift's best skill set is that of a pass catcher, as is Aaron Jones. Both are, half
Jones, Swift. Oh, I love it. Eric. Great.
Yeah, yes. We can't end this season of this show without bringing together one of our favorite little unique pairings. Swift Aaron Jones is kind of probably one of my favorite little skinny stacks.
We should tell him, Dario, that we were so flummoxed by the Packers and the inability to pick anybody on that offense as a run back option last week. We finally settled on Tunyon.
Finally got the Tunyon touchdown.
Well, we talked about him for is exactly what we were talking. Remember how much we were going to talk about Marcus Johnson? That was us last week with Tunyon. Just want to get Eric up to speed on that.
Right. But I thought I remembered our takeaway being gross toward Tunyon, and then of course he delivered the touchdown.
No. Go back to the tape. No, go back to the tape. When we talked about the whole scenario where you can go all these weeks without a touchdown, but if he's running the routes and he's running more routes than Mercedes Lewis, it's eventually going to happen.
Yeah.
Come on, Dario.
No.
I don't remember how much we love Tunyon. Shame.
He did get to 4 targets last week in a blowout in which they did not throw very much. Did get the touchdown, 3 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown, 62% of snaps. Obviously, probably a little bit skewed by, they won 41-17, and 7 of those Vikings points were at the very end.
And Tunyon was the lead scorer with 41 points scored, and Aaron Rodgers failed again to get to 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, shocker, Aaron Rodgers. But I think Tunyon, we like to get into the obscure, and this game is definitely obscure because it's not even on DraftKings. Tunyon seems pretty cool to me. Like, this game has a bunch of guys I think that are pretty darn interesting for tournaments. Like, if I were winning a tournament heading into right, because FanDuel included this in their main GPPs, right? I guess as they couldn't figure out the scheduling stuff. Typical FanDuel. All the Packers and Lions are like, I would not want to head in without exposure to this game. Let's just say, like, even if I was sitting in first, I would not feel good because this game looks like, no matter what, right? Even the Lions aren't playing for something. A lot of juice in this game, all the way down to the big.
And it's
Bob
the highest total on the slate too. It's like,
oh yeah,
when you look at the odds this weekend, it's not even close. This game is like by far the most explosive.
Yeah, Swift Tunyon, baby.
Love it. All right, for the final time of the season until the 2023 season kicks off, we have to wrap up the show with the conviction take that is going to win tournaments. This feels way tougher. I'm always like while I'm speaking, trying to think about what mine is going to be. And holy cow, this week 18 feels really tough. But Dario, you kick us off. What is the one thing that people need to have in their tournament lineups to win in the final regular season week of 2022/2023?
Well, I mean, since I got to go first, I think I'll take the easy one off the board. And that is, of course, Joe Burrow and the Bengals stacks.
God,
I mean,
damn it.
It's like I was like, I knew we were all thinking it because there's not much else that we were excited about in this slate, and I think like everything is pointing in the right direction for Burrow. You can play Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Hurst, play 2 or 3 out of those 4 guys, and just roll with it. Like they're in a good matchup. They're clicking on all cylinders. And yeah, that's it for Burrow.
I am going to double down on Tyrod Taylor.
There we go.
Okay. And I think that you could do Tyrod Taylor as this week's Justin Fields. You could do inverted stacks. You could do Taylor with Devontae Smith, like Taylor, Devontae Smith, Goddard, for example. It'd be just fine. So that's an interesting option. I think what you're going to find, though, is from that game, we talked about the Higgins-Andrews double stacks, the Higgins-Andrews skinny stacks, excuse me. So I think you're going to do a lot of skinny stacking where they're going to take two guys from the same game, but, with a lot of Burrow, and then you're sprinkling in some of these interesting options otherwise, where the guy has mobility, the guy is going to be playing, maybe getting some garbage time. When we actually took a step back, Taylor checks a lot of boxes, and we've done the inverted stack thing successfully with Fields. And so I would say you could easily see a lineup built with Taylor, Eagles receivers, and Andrews and Higgins. And then you fill in the rest with what we've said. But I think that would be an interesting construction that is, you could even use it in cash.
I love it. And then I'm going to add in kind of filling the gaps between what both of these two filled out the majority of your lineup, except the tight end position. I'm going to give you have two tight ends. You don't need to worry about the rest of the slate. Mark Andrews and Trey McBride. X everybody else out. In the teams that don't have Andrews, maybe you don't have a run back to your Bengals stacks, or you play J.K. Dobbins at the running back spot. In your non-Andrews teams, you're rocking with Trey McBride. I really don't understand why he projects to be 2% owned, to be totally honest. You compare him with Niners guys. You can leave him a standalone tight end as well. But I think if you focus in at tight end there, you focus in on the stacks and the kind of skinny stacks that these two guys have put together, you're going to have a pretty damn good portfolio come week 18.
Oh, yeah.
We've run a little long, but that's to be expected on the final week of the season. I personally have had a absolute pleasure working with you two and getting to know you two guys over the course of the entire season. We will not be back for the playoff rounds. I don't think we need to talk a lot of game stacks when there's only like two games on some of the slates, but we will be back next year, hopefully, to continue the show. And I hope you guys have had a little bit of fun, just like we have along the way. I'll let you guys just say goodbye if you would like to for the last time.
Yeah, of course. It's likewise. It's been a blast, and I think this is definitely like every week. I know that after this show, I'll have a much better grasp of the slate, just talking it through with you guys and getting sharper. And yet, like you said, it's been a great time getting to know you guys, working with you guys. I mean, obviously, I know Matt fairly well, but the RotoGrinders and everything stuff. So it's been a good time. Thanks for having us.
Thank you to Chris Gimino. Thank you to Steven and all the producers over at RotoGrinders. Dan Bach, excuse me. Dan Bach. This show is his idea. So yeah, really appreciate all of the support that RotoGrinders has showed us. Yeah, it's been a true pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. Eric is an amazing host. And I really appreciate Dario carrying me every week with because it says analytics at the top, and he makes sure that we put the A+ in analytics.
I love it. All right, guys, good luck in week 18, and the three of us will see you guys next season. See ya.